Good evening. Thank you for joining us for this live broadcast this very Monday, the 31st of July. I'm Rona Nahabwe, together with Winnie Wiins and Naka Uchi on the sign language, and this is Business Today. We have a lot lined up for you tonight. All you have to do is keep your eyes glued. Before we get into it, here's what topped our focus tonight. In Business Today, Djibouti Ports and Free Trade Zone Authority engages Uganda on logistics route linking Addis, Juba, Kampala and ultimately West Africa. URSB 2022-2023 report indicates 53 liquidated, 154 insolvent and 23,789 new companies as private sector notes cost of credit, tough business among challenges. And headline consumer price index drops to 3.9% from 4.9% in the year ended June as Arua, Gulu sustain high prices while Kampala records a 2% index. To Business Today, I'm Rona Nahabwe, and let's begin with URSB and how it's recording more enterprises and exits. Uganda Registration Service Bureau's report for 2022-2023 highlights challenges for private sector enterprises. Despite 23,789 companies registered in the course of that time, showing growing interest among entrepreneurs and businesses to formalize operations, 53 companies were liquidated and 154 were sent to insolvency. In this report, the private sector, however, weighs in on why and what could be going wrong in spite for the accelerator programs for startups. Take a look. According to Uganda Registration Service Bureau's 2022-2023 annual report, 53 companies ran out of business upon liquidation. 6 liabilities facilitated with settlement and 154 companies declared insolvent. Robert Mugabe, the Director Insolvency and Receivership, informs us that as part of assisting struggling businesses, 118 insolvency practitioners were successfully registered. To the private sector, this number is alarming, although optimistic for those that could be undergoing receivership to recover amounts of outstanding secured loans.
So our focus at the moment as URSP is to not liquidate them, but rather to do what we are calling corporate rescue, keeping businesses alive, such that they contribute to the economy. We have noticed that reasons that make them close include poor management, what we are calling corporate governance, bookkeeping. You know, there is always a fight about tax and profits. So the practices that we do as business people are the reasons that in a way or the other may cause closure. So our focus now is how do we even make it zero? How do we make that percentage zero? Even if they have not disclosed it yet.
I think this is really a point of concern. We should not be losing companies, really. We should be, as a country, working on ways in which we can make our companies have a better opportunity of surviving. Now, this is where a lot of effort is going to be put to, first of all, see what is the problem, why is this company meeting its obligations. It's mainly because maybe they are not paying people who lent them money, people who supplied them goods, but they are not paying, they are not paying employees or are not paying government liabilities. So that is the time now in receivership that you look at this and start organizing yourselves. So many of them start by looking at the leadership, which they put aside, and then bring in new leadership. Now, during that time, they now are discussing and negotiating with the various parties, with the various creditors, asking them for perhaps new modified credit terms. For instance, they can say, okay, if you are paying you 2 million a month.
Despite this, the report also reveals that 23,789 companies were registered compared to the previous fiscal year of 2021-2022, where the number of companies registered witnessed a notable 28% increase, highlighting a positive impact. PSFU asserts that cost of credit, private entities lending money to government, stringent business requirements, market variations, and more continue to hinder business growth.
With regard to business registration, we registered close to 25,000 companies, 27,000 business names, 90,000 legal documents, 15,000 debentures, and it is on record that the increase in registration of companies was by close to 30%. This means that you continue to see many members of the public, even the investors in the diaspora, taking interest in formalizing their businesses, which is a good sign.
Let me give you some of the elements. First of all, if you look at, like, for instance, the cost of credit, the cost of credit is so high. So when you go to the financial institutions to access money which you should use to trade, the interest rates are very high. So there is too much competition. The companies don't make as big profits as they should be making. And because there is high interest rate, so many of them find themselves unable to service their loans. And then if they're unable to service their loans, definitely the banks are going to come back and say, if you're not paying, can we please liquidate the company so that we get back our money? So that's a big issue today. The second issue is that there are companies that are doing business with the government, and the government is taking long to pay. Now, if government is taking long to pay, it means if you borrowed to go and trade, so the banks, if they don't receive the money in the first month, they penalize you. So the second month, it is piling and they are penalizing. So by the time, if you're given 3-4 months and you're not paying, then the banks are going to come back and say, we're liquidating you. One area that is causing companies to fail to meet their obligations is the markets where they sell their goods. This is mostly, especially true with small and medium enterprises who have a very limited market. And because they have a very limited market and the competition is high, they don't sell as much as they should to collect enough money to help them meet the obligations, pay the rent, pay their workers, pay loans, and pay this and the other. So in the end, they are not able to remain afloat. Also, recently we've had companies, because of the various stringent measures that have been put in place to collect taxes by URA, a number of companies are really finding it very hard to continue trading.
There is need to create more awareness about insolvency services in response to disruptions caused to businesses by the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, which many financially witnessed and are still unable to sustain operations. We now look at Belgrade, Uganda's next market. The newly launched trade hub in Belgrade, Uganda Connect, denotes current initiative towards value addition and export promotion. The trade window secured during President Museveni's second-day visit to Serbia is part of the attempt to strengthen the ties between Uganda and Serbia, while serving as a crucial gateway for Uganda's goods and services to the Balkans. Processed coffee is a mega target with a kilogram primed at $40. Take a look.
President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni officially opened Uganda Trade Hub, known as Uganda Connect, in Serbia's capital of Belgrade. The hub is aimed at strengthening bilateral relations between Uganda and Serbia, paving way for the country's goods and services in the Balkans region. According to International Monetary Fund, Serbian nominal GDP in 2022 officially estimated at $65.697 billion, as the economy is dominated by services, which accounts for 67.9% of GDP, followed by industry with 26.1% of GDP and agriculture at 6% of GDP, as it will serve as a central contact point for conducting trade operations.
Yugoslav companies, especially one called Enago Project, built very good structures in Uganda. There's one structure which is very famous, known as the Nile International Conference Center and Hotel. This was built by the Enago Project, hired by the Uganda government in 1970. Then 1986, we brought them back and they rehabilitated the Nile Conference Center and they also rehabilitated the Sheraton. And through barter trade, we worked with them, and they built a very good road between a place called Mitiana and another place called...
Of African growth. Africa in total has 1.5 billion population, much bigger than India, but Africa is developing, moving forward. In 30 years, we'll have more than 2.5 billion people in Africa, and it will become then one of the biggest, most important markets in the world after Asia. We talked about many important issues. I'm very grateful to President Museveni for standing by the international law, and that because Uganda is supporting the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Serbia, of the whole Serbian territory in international fora, international organs, we do reciprocally for Uganda and all African countries.
This initiative is expected to create new avenues for both nations to collaborate and explore potential business ventures, fostering economic growth and prosperity for their respective countries. President Museveni acknowledged Ugandans to utilize this chance, where we shall be able to get $40 from a kilogram of good processed coffee, where a kilogram of unprocessed coffee is sold at only $2.5, indicating losses we have been making.
The production, we in Africa, we are pointing out that there are two levels. There's the production of the raw materials, and then production by adding value to the raw materials. So therefore, these are the 4 points I want to highlight for this conference.
As the Uganda Trade Hub begins its operation in Belgrade, it is anticipated to witness positive developments in trade relations between Uganda and Serbia.
Moving on to how inflation has dropped by 1%, according to Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Annual headline inflation has dropped by 1% to 3.9% from 4.9% in the year that ended in June, while Alua and Gulu sustained the highest consumer price index at 6.6% and 5.5% respectively. Kampala recorded the least price index at 2.9%, for non-alcoholic beverages experienced a drop in prices. Take a look.
As measured by Consumer Price Index at Uganda Bureau of Statistics, the rate at which commodity prices are increasing has reduced. Now, if you look at the headline inflation, they're saying it has reduced to 3.9, up from 4.9%, and the head-to-head, that's monthly inflation, has also reduced to 0.0, up from 0.3 recorded in the month of June.
Production is high. Of course, automatically the forces of demand and supply, the prices will be low. So that one, we are seeing that most of these items have started to come in. Members, a bunch of matoke. How much money were you buying a bunch of matoke in March? All of you know that a bunch of matoke in March, Feb, it was way too high. But currently, the bunch of matoke actually has gone down. So when we are doing these measurements, we are also trying to ask, but at the same time they tell you there is a lot of matoke, and you can even see it in the centers where you are buying. So that one is very...
The main drivers that lead to a decrease in monthly inflation was the monthly food crops and related items inflation that decreased by 3.1% in July 2023, up from 4.2% drop recorded in June 2023. This was mainly due to monthly vegetables, cooking bananas, and pulse inflations. Specifically, cooking bananas inflation decreased by 17.6% in July 2023, up from 20.0 drop recorded in June 2023. Rice inflation as well registered a 24.6% in July 2023 compared to 31.7% recorded in June 2023.
According to records, they're saying that food crops and related items, they are the ones whose inflation has reduced to a normal price. But according to experts, they're saying that the country is coming back to normal from the COVID-19 pandemic shock.
Speaking to some of the traders from Nakao Market, they say that the price of rice hasn't yet reduced to their expectations. They said that they used to buy a sack of rice that is equivalent to 100 kgs at 550,000, but now is at 520,000. The price of rice has not reduced very well. We used to buy a sack of 100 kilograms at 550,000. They have just reduced it by 20,000 Uganda shillings.
Sawa zine gundi box ya nyanya eringa ku mitwalo nga 8 kati gwe olina okuba ogitunda bei no.
A box of tomatoes is around 80,000, so you sell carefully to get profits. Green pepper is not that expensive too.
There was an increase in the prices of commodities and housing, water, electricity, gas, whose inflation was recorded at 3.2% in the year ending July 2023, compared to a 0.8% compared in the year June 2023.
When we talk about slowing down in the inflation, we might think that everything has reduced, but we have those checks in other categories, the COICOP divisions, the 13 that we normally compile our index and inflation. You realize that when you look at the clothing and footwear on an annual basis, if you try to compare the last year, that is the year that we had the 12 months up to June 2023, we registered the clothing and footwear inflation at 3.1%. But when this year that is ending July, it is at 3.4%. Meaning there are some items that have actually gone up, because when you try to look at the annual basis, most of the inflation has either stayed the same or it has slowed down.
Much as other products have recorded a decrease in prices, there are other products that have recorded a rise in prices, especially charcoal. And this follows the presidential ban on charcoal burning and exportation outside the country. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now, shifting our focus to public procurement, the Public Accounts Committee has interested itself in the Auditor General's report bringing Mulago Specialized Women Neonatal Hospital to book. The team from the hospital has failed to account for 550 million shillings that was intended to purchase 2 station wagons and an ambulance in the year of 2021 and 2022 fiscal year. Assessment of the Auditor General's report by the committee has invited demand for the document-based evidence regarding the shoddy procurement.
In the financial year 2021-2022, Mulago Specialized Hospital for Women was given 550 million shillings to procure 3 vehicles, 2 pickups and 1 ambulance. This money has not been reflected in the documents presented to the Public Accounts Committee today, which has raised some questions.
Considering the audit report on Mulago Specialized Women Hospital, monies were advanced to the hospital to procure vehicles. Incidentally, in their statements and documents submitted, that money was not reflected in the documents. Neither did they reflect or provide evidence to the effect that the vehicles were procured.
Now, he has said that actually the figure for vehicles is contained in the figure indicated against goods and services consumed. That's what he said. 1, I want to find out under which standard that guided him to do that. Then 2, I have corroborated the figure for goods and services with the right note, which is note 8. Note 8 is on page 19. I have not seen anything like vehicles, Chair.
Non-residential buildings, we have residential buildings, we have roads and bridges, we have transport equipment, and Honorable Xavier, transport equipment would amount to vehicles? Would the transport equipment amount to vehicles? Yeah. So transport equipment is 0. Then if we move to the next one, in the event that transport equipment is not vehicles, then we say maybe they are under machinery and equipment. Machinery and equipment is also 0. So where do we get these vehicles in these accounts here?
The team from Mulago Specialized Hospital for Women, on the other hand, has informed the committee that from the money given, they were only able to purchase 2 vehicles since COVID-19 had affected so many prices of items. But they had no evidence to back up the allegations.
Money would be enough for the 3 vehicles, the 1 ambulance and the 2 pickup cars. However, along the way, prices of cars really went up during the COVID period, and we discovered that it was not enough to be able to cover all the 3. So the funds were used for the 2.
The accounting officer stated that the planning of procuring the vehicles is done at an earlier date compared to when they are procured. And in that process, there were price rises due to COVID. Can I see if I captured you well? Do you mean that the price of vehicles rose to the extent that the cost of a 3rd vehicle was dissolved into the actual cost of the 2 vehicles? So you procured 2 for the price of 3. May I know whether the increment was to a degree that an entire price of a unit was swallowed up in the actual cost of the 2 units?
The committee has also discovered that the hospital lacks planning officers. That is why money appropriated for a certain item is diverted for other activities not budgeted for, which is against the law.
Yes, we've discovered that most of these institutions that are science-based or science-related don't give a lot of priority to human resource areas like planning. So you'll find most of these institutions don't have planners. And as a result, many of their activities are not properly planned. So we really advise them to take planning as a priority, recruit planners to help them in planning. Because if you're a hospital and you don't have a planner, it means so many things are not going to go as planned, because you need a technical, knowledgeable person in that area, in that field, to help you with the overall and general planning of the facility.
The legislators have given Mulago Specialized Hospital for Women only 1 day to present all evidence pertaining the purchased vehicles before they can proceed with them. Samla Nifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Thank you, Samla Anifa, for that report, which will usher us into a short commercial break, but we still have more. Stick around.